The stars were dying one by one. Jake Morrison stood at the huge window in his office on Luna Station and watched the red lights on the galaxy map turn dark. Each light that went out meant another world had fallen to the Vorthak Empire. Another billion lives lost forever. Admiral Morrison was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been fighting wars for 30 years, but nothing had prepared him for this. The Vorthak were not like any enemy humanity had ever faced. They were aliens who turned entire planets into glass and ash. Their ships could heal themselves when damaged. Their weapons could make matter disappear completely. The door to his office slid open with a soft hiss. Captain Lisa Parker walked, in her uniform wrinkled and her face showing the strain of too many sleepless nights. Behind her came Dr. Ryan Cooper, a thin man with nervous hands who kept looking over his shoulder, as if something was following him. "Admiral, we need to talk," Lisa said. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the worry underneath. "The Coalition sent another message. They're begging us to join the war." Jake turned away from the window. The Coalition was made up of 12 different alien races who had been living in peace for thousands of years. They had advanced technology, beautiful cities, and art that could make humans cry. But they had one big problem. They had forgotten how to fight real wars. "What did they offer this time?" Jake asked. Ryan stepped forward, his hands shaking slightly as he held up a data pad. "Everything, sir. Their best shield technology, their fastest engines, even their medical secrets that could help humans live for 300 years. They're desperate." The Vorthak Empire had appeared from deep space 2 years ago. Nobody knew where they came from or what they wanted. They just started attacking. Their biomechanical ships looked like giant insects made of metal and flesh. They moved through space like sharks through water, fast and deadly. The first world to fall was Kepler Prime, a beautiful planet covered in crystal cities. The Zephyrians who lived there were peaceful people who looked like humans, but had large eyes that could see colors humans couldn't imagine. The Vorthak ships arrived without warning. In 6 hours, Kepler Prime was nothing but melted rock floating in space. After that, the attacks came faster. The Altair system fell in 3 days. Proxima Colony lasted only 12 hours. Each time, the Coalition sent their fleets to fight back. Each time their ships were destroyed so completely that there wasn't even wreckage left behind. "How many Coalition ships are left?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her tablet. "Maybe 50, scattered across 3 systems. The Vorthak have over 1,000 warships and more coming from their home territory." Jake sat down heavily in his chair. Earth had been watching this war from a safe distance, hoping it would stay far away. But now the Vorthak were moving toward human space. Intelligence reports said they had scout ships only 20 light years from Earth. "Sir," Ryan said quietly, "there might be another way." Jake looked up at the scientist. Ryan Cooper had been working on secret projects for the military for 15 years. He was the kind of man who could solve impossible problems, but his solutions often came with a price. "What are you talking about, Doctor?" Ryan glanced at Lisa, then back at Jake. "Project Darkstar, sir. We've been working on it for 3 years in the deep labs under Cheyenne Mountain. It's different from anything the Coalition has." "Different how?" "It's a ship, but not like any ship that's ever been built. We've been using theories that other species gave up on because they were too dangerous." Lisa frowned. "Dangerous how?" Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Outside the window, another red light went dark on the galaxy map. Another world was gone. "Human science is different from alien science," Ryan finally said. "Most species in the galaxy develop technology that works with the natural laws of the universe. We humans, we like to break rules. We like to push boundaries. We ask, 'What if?' when everyone else says, 'You shouldn't.'" Jake leaned forward. "Get to the point, Doctor. The ship we built doesn't just fight enemies, it fights reality itself. It uses controlled black holes for power. Its weapons tear holes in space and time. Its armor exists in multiple dimensions at once." Lisa's face went pale. "That sounds insane." "It is insane," Ryan admitted. The Coalition wouldn't even consider building something like this. They think it's too dangerous to exist. But sir, it might be the only thing that can stop the Vorthak. Before Jake could answer, alarms started blaring throughout Luna Station. Red lights flashed in the corridors outside. A voice came over the speakers. All senior staff to the command center immediately. Priority Alpha emergency. The three of them rushed to the command center, where dozens of technicians were working frantically at their stations. On the main screen was a live image from the outer solar system. Dark shapes were moving between the asteroids. Vorthak ships, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with sickly green light. How many? Jake asked. 12 dreadnoughts, sir, reported Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner. They just came out of hyperspace near Jupiter. Our deep space sensors didn't detect them until they were already in the system. Lisa cursed under her breath. They're 3 weeks early. We're not ready for this. On the screen, Earth's outer defense platforms were firing everything they had at the Vorthak ships. Missiles, energy beams, and particle cannons lit up space like a deadly fireworks show. For a moment, it looked like the defenses might hold. Then, the Vorthak ships fired back. Their weapons didn't look like much, just thin beams of pale light that touched the defense platforms for only a second. But where the beams hit, the platforms simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not blown apart, just gone as if they had never been there at all. My God, someone whispered. Within minutes, all of Earth's outer defenses were eliminated. The Vorthak fleet began moving toward Mars, where the main coalition forces were gathering for what everyone knew would be their last stand. Jake turned to Ryan. How long until your ship is ready? Sir, it's not tested. We don't know if it will work or if it will kill everyone on board, or if it might accidentally destroy the solar system. Doctor, look at that screen. Look at those ships coming to kill everyone we've ever known. How long? Ryan's face was white, but his voice was steady. 6 hours to get it ready for launch. Another 2 hours to reach the battle zone. Then get moving. Captain Parker, you're in command of the Dark Star ship. Lisa stared at him. Sir, I've never even seen this ship. I don't know how it works. You'll learn fast. You're the best combat pilot we have. As Ryan and Lisa rushed out to prepare the impossible ship, Jake stayed in the command center watching the Vorthak fleet advance. He thought about his daughter back on Earth, about the millions of children who would never grow up if this plan failed. He thought about the 12 peaceful species of the Coalition, who had offered humanity everything they had in exchange for help. And he thought about the terrible weapon his own species had built in secret, a ship so dangerous that even its creators were afraid of it. The galaxy was about to find out what happened when desperate humans decided to break all the rules. The elevator dropped so deep into Cheyenne Mountain that Lisa Parker's ears popped 3 times. The ride took 20 minutes, going down through solid rock until they reached levels that didn't exist on any official map. When the doors finally opened, she stepped into a world that shouldn't have been possible. The hangar was huge, bigger than 3 football fields put together. But it wasn't the size that made Lisa's breath catch in her throat. It was the ship, floating in the center of the space. The UES Reaper didn't look like any ship she had ever seen. Most spaceships were white or silver with clean lines and bright lights. The Reaper was different. It seemed to eat light instead of reflecting it. Its hull was so black that looking at it hurt her eyes. Strange patterns moved across its surface, like lightning trapped under glass. Beautiful, isn't she? Dr. Ryan Cooper said, but his voice sounded worried instead of proud. Lisa walked closer to the ship. The air around it felt thick and heavy, like the moment before a thunderstorm. Her skin tingled and the hair on her arms stood up. What's it made of? That's complicated, Ryan said. He led her to a control platform where dozens of scientists were working frantically. The hull is made of programmable matter. It can change its shape and density based on what we need. The armor exists in quantum superposition until something tries to hit it. In simple words, Doctor, Ryan rubbed his tired eyes. The armor doesn't decide what it is until something shoots at it. Then it becomes whatever it needs to be to stop the attack. They walked up a ramp that appeared in the ship's side as they approached. Inside, The Reaper was even stranger than outside. The corridors seemed to bend in ways that made no sense. Sometimes Lisa felt like she was walking uphill when the floor looked flat. The walls pulsed with a soft blue light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "The ship's core is down here," Ryan said, leading her through a maze of passages. "But I should warn you, it affects people differently. Some crew members get sick. Others have bad dreams. A few have asked to be transferred off the project." They entered a room at the heart of the ship, and Lisa understood why. In the center of the room was a sphere of perfect darkness, held inside a cage of energy fields. It was a black hole, she realized. A real black hole, small enough to fit in a room but containing the mass of a small planet. "We call it a controlled singularity," Ryan explained. "It provides unlimited power, but it's also incredibly dangerous. If the containment fields fail for even a second, it would swallow the Earth." Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner was already there, checking weapon systems. He was a young officer with steady hands and cold eyes, the kind of man who could fire weapons that killed thousands and still sleep at night. "Captain Parker," Alex said with a nod. "I've been studying the weapon systems. They're unlike anything in the fleet." "Show me," Lisa said. Alex led them to the weapon control room. The displays showed energy readings that made no sense. The main guns channel zero-point energy. They don't fire projectiles or energy beams. They fire holes in reality itself. "What does that mean?" "When we shoot at something, we're not hitting it with matter or energy. We're hitting it with the absence of existence. Whatever the beam touches stops being real." Lisa felt cold. "And this is what we're planning to use against the Vorthak?" "It gets worse," Ryan said quietly. "The faster-than-light drive doesn't move through space. It moves through dimensions that exist parallel to our own. Sometimes things come back with us, things that shouldn't exist in our reality." Chief Engineer Maria Santos joined them, wiping grease from her hands. She was a small woman with intelligent eyes and a reputation for fixing impossible problems. "Captain, I need to tell you about the engine tests." "What about them?" 3 weeks ago, we did a short jump to Pluto and back. The trip should have taken 6 hours. We got back in 4 hours, but according to our chronometers, we were gone for 3 days. Lisa stared at her. "That's impossible." "That's what I thought too. But Captain, this ship doesn't follow normal rules. Time moves differently around it. Space bends in ways that hurt to think about. And every time we use the engines, we tear small holes in the fabric of reality." Ryan pulled up a display showing the solar system. Red dots marked places where the Reaper had conducted tests. Around each dot were strange readings that looked like scars in space itself. "Each test flight leaves permanent damage," Ryan admitted. "We're not sure if these distortions will heal over time, or if they'll keep growing." Lisa looked at the faces around her. These were some of the smartest people on Earth, and they were all terrified of what they had built. "Why did you make this thing if it's so dangerous?" "Because conventional weapons don't work against the Vorthak," Alex said. "We've seen the battle reports from coalition fleets, energy shields, kinetic barriers, even quantum armor. The Vorthak weapons go through everything like it's made of paper." "But this ship is different," Maria added. "It doesn't fight by the same rules the Vorthak expect. It might be the only thing that can surprise them." Alarms started ringing throughout the ship. Ryan checked his communication device and his face went pale. "The Vorthak fleet has reached Mars. The coalition forces are engaging them now." They rushed to the bridge where massive screens showed the battle happening millions of miles away. Coalition ships, elegant vessels from a dozen different species, were fighting desperately against the biomechanical monsters of the Vorthak fleet. The alien ships were beautiful in their own way. Crystalline vessels from the Zephyrian, worlds fired beams of pure light. Organic ships from the plant-like Verdani species released clouds of spores that could eat through metal. The insectoid Chitauri used swarm tactics with thousands of small fighters. For a few minutes, it looked like they might have a chance. The coalition had learned from their defeats and developed new tactics. They were hitting the Vorthak ships from multiple angles, concentrating their fire on weak points. Then the Vorthak responded. The biomechanical ships began to change. Their hulls rippled and flowed like living tissue. Damaged sections healed in seconds. New weapon systems grew from their surfaces like cancerous tumors. The Vorthak ships weren't just machines. They were alive, and they were evolving during the battle. Within an hour, half the Coalition fleet was destroyed. The survivors were retreating toward the inner solar system, broadcasting desperate calls for help. "How long until we can launch?" Lisa asked. Ryan checked his instruments. 4 hours for final preparations. The crew is assembling now. "What kind of crew does a ship like this need?" "That's another problem," Ryan said reluctantly. "Normal people can't operate the Reaper's systems. The ship interfaces directly with human neural patterns, specifically with the parts of our brain that handle aggression and tactical thinking." "You mean it reads our minds?" "More than that. It amplifies certain human traits that other species find disturbing. Our capacity for violence, our willingness to take risks, our ability to make terrible decisions when we're desperate." Lisa understood now why the other species had offered humanity everything they had. Not because humans were noble or heroic, but because humans were willing to do things that civilized species wouldn't consider. "Captain," Alex said, studying the tactical displays, "the Vorthak ships are broadcasting something. It's not a communication. It's some kind of energy pulse." On the screens, they watched as the pulse spread outward from the enemy fleet. When it reached the fleeing Coalition ships, something terrible happened. The alien vessels simply stopped moving. Their engines went dark, their weapons powered down. "What did they do?" Lisa asked. "I think," Ryan said slowly, "they just turned off every piece of advanced technology in the solar system. Every Coalition ship, every space station, every piece of alien tech just went dead." Maria checked her readings. "Our conventional ships are affected too. Anything with advanced computer systems or energy shields has stopped working." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. "What about the Reaper?" Ryan smiled grimly. "The Reaper doesn't use the same technology principles as anyone else. Whatever the Vorthak did, it didn't affect us. So we're the only ship left that can fight? We're the only ship left that can do anything." Lisa looked at the screens showing the dead Coalition fleet floating helplessly in space. Behind them, the Vorthak ships were advancing toward Earth, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with triumph. In a few hours, she would take humanity's most dangerous creation into battle against an enemy that had just proven they could turn off any normal weapon. The fate of every living thing in the galaxy would depend on a ship that scared its own creators and a crew trained to embrace humanity's darkest instincts. She just hoped they were making the right choice. News of the Reaper's first battle spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. In the crystal cities of the Zephyrian homeworld, crowds gathered around public displays showing footage of the human ship tearing holes in reality. On the forest, worlds of the Verdani, the plant-like beings trembled their leaves in fear as they watched space itself bleed from the Reaper's weapons. Captain Lisa Parker stood in the Reaper's conference room, surrounded by holographic displays showing messages from every species in the Coalition. None of them were congratulating humanity on their victory. Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrians appeared on the main screen, his crystalline features twisted with worry. "Captain Parker, we are grateful for your intervention, but we must discuss what your ship has done to local spacetime." "We stopped the Vorthak fleet," Lisa replied. "Isn't that what you wanted? At what cost?" Veltar gestured to data streaming behind him. "Our scientists have detected quantum fractures spreading throughout this star system. Your weapons have created permanent tears in the fabric of reality itself." Dr. Ryan Cooper stepped forward, his face haggard from days without sleep. "Ambassador, we're monitoring the situation. The distortions appear to be stable." "Stable?" Veltar's large eyes flashed with anger. "Captain, do you know why the Harbinger race vanished 12 million years ago? They built weapons exactly like yours. Weapons that could edit reality, that could unmake matter itself. They used them to win a war just as you did." "What happened to them?" Lisa asked, though she dreaded the answer. "They destroyed themselves. Their reality-altering weapons created a cascade failure that unraveled the fundamental forces holding their galaxy together." Billions of star systems simply ceased to exist. The survivors fled to other galaxies, but they brought the instability with them. Chief Engineer Maria Santos checked her instruments. Captain, I hate to interrupt, but we've got a more immediate problem. The quantum distortions around Jupiter are growing. They've spread to 3 of the planet's moons. The display showed Jupiter's orbital space where patches of twisted reality drifted like cosmic cancer. Within these zones, the laws of physics worked differently. Light moved in spirals, gravity flowed backward, and time itself moved at different speeds. How bad is it? Lisa asked. Bad. One of our survey probes entered a distortion field near Europa. It aged 300 years in 30 seconds, then reversed time and became younger than when it was built. Dr. Susan Blake, the ship's science officer, had been studying the quantum readings for hours. She was a brilliant woman who had spent her career trying to understand the deepest mysteries of the universe. Now she looked like someone who had seen too much. Captain, I need to show you something, Susan said. She brought up a new display showing energy readings from across the solar system. These aren't just random distortions. They're following a pattern. The tiers in space-time are connecting to each other, forming a network. A network of what? I think they're doorways, passages to somewhere else, and Captain, something is trying to come through. Before Lisa could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner rushed to his weapons station, his face grim. Captain, we have incoming. The Vorthak reinforcements have arrived. The main screen showed the edge of the solar system, where space itself seemed to ripple and bend. Massive shapes emerged from hyperspace, ships so large they had their own gravity fields. The Vorthak world killers had come to finish what their advanced fleet had started, but these ships were different from the ones they had fought before. Where the earlier vessels had been biomechanical hybrids, these were pure living tissue. They pulsed and breathed like enormous hearts floating in space. Some were miles long, with surfaces covered in what looked like eyes and mouths. 57 world killers, Alex reported. And Captain, they're not alone. Behind the massive ships came something that made Lisa's blood run cold. It was the largest artificial structure she had ever seen, a space station or ship so vast it could have held Earth's moon inside it. Its surface was covered in organic growths that looked like neural tissue, and streams of energy flowed between towering spires like thoughts made visible. That's a Vorthak hive mind, Ryan whispered. Intelligence reports mentioned them, but we've never seen one before. It's not just a ship, it's a living brain the size of a small planet. Commander Tony Walsh, the ship's tactical officer, studied the formation of enemy vessels. He was an older man who had fought in border conflicts for 20 years, but nothing had prepared him for this. Captain, they're not advancing, they're holding position at the system's edge. Why would they do that? The answer came in the form of a transmission from the hive mind itself. The voice that emerged from the speakers was unlike anything human ears had ever heard. It was the sound of a million minds speaking as one, of thoughts given voice across impossible distances. Humans of the vessel Reaper, the hive mind said. We are War Prime Thekmor of the Vorthak Empire. We have come to discuss terms. Lisa exchanged glances with her crew. In 2 years of war, the Vorthak had never attempted communication with anyone. They simply arrived, destroyed everything, and moved on. This is Captain Parker. What terms? You have built weapons that wound reality itself. This is forbidden by laws older than your species. Cease using these weapons immediately, and we will grant your people a swift death. That's not much of an offer. It is more mercy than we have shown any other species. Human, your weapons are not just dangerous to us. They are dangerous to existence itself. The tears you create in space-time call to things that should never be awakened. Dr. Blake's instruments suddenly went crazy, detecting massive energy surges from the quantum distortions near Jupiter. Captain, something's happening to the rifts we created. They're opening. On the screen, the patches of twisted space began to expand and merge. Reality bled away like water through holes, revealing glimpses of somewhere else. Somewhere dark and cold, where vast shapes moved through an endless void. What are those things? Alex asked. Susan's voice was barely a whisper. "They're the remains of the Harbinger race, or what they became when their weapons finally consumed them." The things emerging from the rifts didn't look like any life form that should exist. They were beings of pure entropy, creatures that had been transformed by their own reality-altering weapons into living violations of natural law. Where they touched normal space, stars flickered and died. Planets aged billions of years in seconds. The very concept of existence seemed to weaken around them. "This is what we tried to prevent," War Prime Thekmore broadcast. "This is why we fled our home galaxy. The Harbinger weapons create doorways for these entities. Every reality tear you make gives them another way to enter this universe." Lisa watched in horror as the entropy beings spread outward from Jupiter, leaving trails of dead space in their wake. One of them touched the asteroid belt, and thousands of rocks simply crumbled into cosmic dust. "War Prime, what do these things want?" "They want to finish what the Harbingers started. To unmake this galaxy as they unmade ours. To reduce all matter and energy to the void they now inhabit." Commander Greg Harrison, leading a squadron of human fighters near Mars, reported in with panic in his voice. "Captain, we're detecting temporal anomalies throughout the inner system. Time is moving backward, near Venus. The space station at Luna just aged 50 years in 5 minutes. Maria checked her readings. "Captain, the quantum distortions are feeding off each other. Every time we used our weapons, we made it easier for these things to break through. We didn't just tear holes in space. We gave them a roadmap to our reality." Lisa felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on her. They had created the ultimate weapon, something powerful enough to defeat any enemy. But in doing so, they had opened the door to something far worse than the Vorthak. "War Prime Thekmore, is there any way to stop them?" "Perhaps. But it would require both our fleets working together. And human, it would require you to do something your species has never been willing to do." "What's that?" "Admit that some victories come at too high a price. Your weapon must be destroyed, and with it any hope of defeating us through superior firepower." Lisa looked around the bridge at her crew. These were the best and brightest humanity had to offer, people who had sacrificed everything to build the perfect weapon. Now they were being asked to destroy it and face the Vorthak with conventional arms. But outside, the entropy beings were spreading through the solar system like cancer through a body. Reality itself was unraveling, and time was running out. The choice before them was simple and terrible: destroy their ultimate weapon and face certain defeat, or keep it and watch the universe die around them. The entropy beings spread through the solar system like a plague of nothingness. Captain Lisa Parker watched on the Reaper's main screen as one of the creatures touched Mars, and the red planet's surface began to turn gray and lifeless. Not destroyed, but drained of the very concept of existence. "Captain, we're receiving emergency signals from Earth," Communications Officer Danny Rivers reported. "The temporal distortions have reached Luna. The moon base is aging decades every hour." Lisa closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of her sister back on Earth, of her niece who would be starting school soon if there was still a world for her to grow up in. When she opened them, her decision was made. Open a channel to War Prime Thekmore. The massive Vorthak hive mind appeared on screen, its surface covered in pulsing neural tissue. When it spoke, the voice carried the weight of 1 billion connected minds. "Human Captain, time grows short. The entropy spreads faster than we calculated. What exactly are you proposing, War Prime? Our species studied the Harbinger records for millions of years before we fled our dying galaxy. There is one way to seal the rifts and send these beings back to their void, but it requires a sacrifice that your kind may not be willing to make." Dr. Ryan Cooper stepped forward, his face pale but determined. "What kind of sacrifice?" "The source of the quantum distortions must be overloaded and collapsed into itself. Your ship's controlled singularity, combined with our bio-neural networks, could create a resonance cascade that repairs the damaged space-time." Chief Engineer Maria Santos checked her instruments. Captain, if we overload the singularity, it won't just destroy the ship. The explosion will be visible from other galaxies. But it will seal the rifts? Lisa asked. War Prime Thekmore's response carried what almost sounded like sadness. Yes. The quantum explosion will restore local spacetime to its original state. The entropy beings will be cut off from this reality and pulled back into their void. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner was studying tactical displays. Captain, there's something else. The entropy beings aren't just random monsters, they're moving in a pattern heading toward something specific. What are they after? Dr. Susan Blake had been monitoring the creatures' movements. They're converging. On Earth, Captain. I think they can sense that our planet is where the reality-altering technology originated. They want to consume the source. On the long-range sensors, the entropy beings were indeed moving through space toward humanity's homeworld. They passed through the asteroid belt like it was empty vacuum, their presence turning solid rock into cosmic dust. Jupiter's great red spot was fading as one of the creatures drained the energy from the planet's storms. How long until they reach Earth? Lisa asked. At their current speed, maybe 6 hours, Susan replied. But Captain, time isn't moving normally around them. They might arrive sooner or later, or possibly before they left. War Prime Thekmore's transmission continued. Human Captain, we offer this alliance not from kindness, but from necessity. If these beings consume your world, they will grow stronger, strong enough to crack the barriers between galaxies and spread their entropy to every inhabited system. Lisa thought about the choice before them. Humanity had built the perfect weapon, something that could defeat any enemy. But perfect weapons, she was learning, often came with imperfect consequences. War Prime, if we do this, if we destroy our ship to seal the rifts, what happens to the war between our species? That remains to be seen. We came to your galaxy fleeing these same entities. Perhaps it is time to stop running and start building something better. Commander Tony Walsh was monitoring the tactical situation. Captain, the Coalition fleets are requesting orders. Their ships are still dead from the Vorthak energy pulse, but their crews are alive. Tell them to evacuate as many people as possible from the inner worlds. Get everyone as far from Earth as they can manage. Betty Stone, the ship's navigator, was working frantically at her station. Captain, I've been calculating the resonance cascade. If we're going to do this, we need to position the ship at the exact center of the quantum distortion field. That's right in the middle of the entropy being's path to Earth. Yes, ma'am. We'll have to fly through them to reach the optimal position. Lisa looked around the bridge at her crew. These people had volunteered to crew humanity's most dangerous ship, knowing it might kill them. Now she was asking them to make the ultimate sacrifice to save not just humanity, but every living thing in the galaxy. All hands. This is the captain, she announced over the ship's communication system. I won't lie to you. What we're about to do will destroy the Reaper and everyone on board. But if we don't do it, these entropy beings will consume everything we've ever cared about. She paused, thinking about the words that would be her crew's last order. We built this ship to protect humanity. That's exactly what we're going to do. Any crew member who wants to evacuate to the escape pods has 60 seconds to reach them. Lisa waited, watching the crew stations. Nobody moved. Alex spoke for all of them. Captain, we knew what we signed up for when we joined this mission. Let's finish it. The Reaper began its final journey, heading toward the heart of the quantum distortion field where reality was thinnest. As they flew, the entropy beings turned toward them, drawn by the ship's reality-altering technology like sharks to blood. The first encounter came near the orbit of Mars. An entropy being the size of a moon drifted into their path, its form constantly shifting between something almost solid and pure nothingness. Where it touched the Reaper's shields, the energy barriers didn't collapse. They simply forgot how to exist. Shields are gone, Maria reported. Not down, just gone. The ship doesn't remember ever having them. More entropy beings surrounded them as they pushed deeper into the distortion field. The creatures didn't attack in any conventional sense. They simply touched things and made them stop being real. Part of the ship's hull vanished, then reappeared, then aged 1,000 years in seconds. Hull integrity is becoming a philosophical question, Maria announced with grim humor. Are we a ship if half of us exist in last Tuesday? Dr. Cooper was making final adjustments to the singularity containment system. Captain, the overload sequence is ready. Once I start it, we have maybe 30 seconds before the cascade begins. War Prime. Thekmore, are your ships in position? Yes, human captain. Our bioneural networks are synchronized with your ship's quantum signature. When your singularity collapses, our ships will channel the resonance throughout local spacetime. Lisa could see Earth ahead of them now, a small blue dot that contained everything humanity had ever accomplished. Behind them, the entropy beings were converging, drawn by the Reaper's approach to the planet that had created reality-altering weapons. Dr. Cooper, begin the overload sequence. Deep in the ship's core, the controlled singularity began to destabilize. The black hole that had powered their impossible journey started to collapse in on itself, but in a way that violated every law of physics. Instead of creating a normal gravitational implosion, it began to unravel the quantum foam that held space and time together. Cascade initiated, Ryan announced. Resonance building. 20 seconds to point of no return. The entropy beings sensed what was happening and rushed toward the Reaper like a tide of nothingness. But they were too late. The singularity reached critical resonance, and the ship became the center of an explosion that rewrote the rules of reality. The blast was visible from every world in the solar system, but instead of destruction, it brought healing. The quantum rifts that had been spreading like cracks in glass suddenly reversed, sealing themselves as space-time remembered how to be stable. The entropy beings were caught in the cascade and pulled back into their void, their connection to normal reality severed. When the light faded, the UES Reaper was gone. In its place was a region of space where the laws of physics worked exactly as they should, where time flowed forward and matter stayed matter. War Prime Thekmore kept his word. The Vorthak fleet withdrew to the edge of the system and opened communications with the coalition worlds. For the first time in their history, they spoke of peace instead of conquest. Admiral Jake Morrison, watching from Luna Station as the reports came in, understood what had happened. Humanity had built the ultimate weapon, but their greatest victory had come from choosing not to use it. The galaxy was safe, but the price had been high. The bravest crew in human history had given their lives to prove that sometimes the strongest thing anyone can do is admit they were wrong. In the years that followed, the Treaty of Sol established new laws prohibiting reality-altering weapons. Humans and Vorthak worked together to heal the damaged regions of space-time, while the coalition worlds shared their knowledge freely to prevent such weapons from ever being built again. The Reaper was gone, but its crew had saved the galaxy by choosing wisdom over power, sacrifice over victory, and hope over fear. It was perhaps the most human thing they could have done. The UES Reaper launched from Earth like a dark arrow shot into space. Captain Lisa Parker sat in the command chair, her hands gripping the armrests as the ship's engines tore holes in reality itself. Around her, the bridge crew worked at stations that hummed with power that shouldn't exist. The ship didn't feel like it was moving through space. Instead, it felt like space was moving around them. Stars stretched into lines of light, then snapped back into points. Sometimes Lisa saw colors that didn't have names, and once she thought she glimpsed something massive and ancient watching them from the spaces between dimensions. "How long until we reach the battle zone?" she asked. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner checked his instruments, frowning at readings that changed every second. "At normal space, 6 hours, but Captain, we're not traveling through normal space. The navigation computer says we'll be there in 20 minutes, but it also says we arrived 3 hours ago. That doesn't make sense. Nothing about this ship makes sense," Chief Engineer Maria Santos said from her station. "The engines are working perfectly, but they're also working in ways that violate several laws of physics." Dr. Ryan Cooper was studying the ship's sensors, his face pale. "Captain, we're picking up the battle. It's not going well." The main screen showed the space around Mars. Dead coalition ships floated like broken toys among the debris of Earth's outer defenses. The Vorthak fleet had formed a perfect battle line, their biomechanical ships pulsing with sickly green light as they advanced toward the inner solar system. "Any coalition ships still fighting?" Lisa asked. 3 Zephyrian cruisers are trying to maintain position near Mars orbit, Alex reported. But their weapons aren't doing any damage. The Vorthak ships just absorb the energy and use it to grow stronger. Lisa watched as one of the elegant crystal ships fired its main weapon at a Vorthak dreadnought. The beam of pure light struck the enemy vessel's hull, and for a moment it looked like it might do some damage. Then the biomechanical ship rippled, and the damaged section grew back thicker than before. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Coalition flagship," the communications officer announced. "Put it through." The screen split to show a Zephyrian commander named Nalseth. His large eyes were filled with despair, and his crystalline skin had lost its usual glow. Behind him, his bridge crew worked frantically at dead control panels. "Human vessel, this is Coalition Commander Nalseth. We appreciate your courage in joining this battle, but you must retreat immediately. The Vorthak have weapons that can disable any technology. Your ship will be helpless within their energy field." Lisa looked at her crew. None of their systems had been affected by whatever the Vorthak had done to the Coalition fleet. "Commander Nalseth, we're going to try something different. Captain Parker, I've seen your ship's energy readings. What you're carrying. It's similar to weapons that destroyed entire galaxies in the past. Please don't use technology that dangerous. The cure might be worse than the disease." The transmission ended as another Coalition ship exploded in the distance. Lisa felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. The aliens were right to be afraid of human weapons, but they were also dying. "Take us into weapon range," she ordered. The Reaper accelerated toward the Vorthak fleet. As they got closer, Lisa could see the enemy ships more clearly. They were beautiful in a horrible way, like giant insects made of metal and flesh. Their hulls breathed like living things, and she could see what looked like eyes blinking along their surfaces. "Multiple enemy ships turning toward us," Alex reported. "They're charging weapons." "Let them come," Lisa said. "Target the lead dreadnought." "Captain, the weapons are ready, but I need to warn you again. When we fire, we're not just shooting at the enemy. We're damaging space itself." Lisa thought about Earth, about her sister and her niece living in New York, about all the people counting on them to stop the Vorthak. Fire. The Reaper's main weapon unleashed something that wasn't energy or matter. It was the absence of existence, itself a beam of pure void that reached across space in an instant. When it touched the Vorthak dreadnought, a section of the ship simply ceased to be. Not destroyed, not vaporized, just gone as if it had never existed. The enemy ship lurched sideways, its biomechanical systems trying to heal damage that wasn't really damage. How do you regrow something that never was? Green fluid leaked from the edges of the void, and the ship's hull began to convulse in what looked like pain. "Direct hit," Alex reported, his voice tight with amazement and horror. "The target is, I don't know what to call it. It's partially deleted from reality." But the victory came with a price. Where the void beam had passed through space, reality itself was torn. The stars behind the damaged area flickered and bent, and Lisa could see through the hole to something that definitely wasn't their universe. "Captain, we've got a problem," Maria announced. "The quantum distortion from our weapon is spreading. It's affecting local spacetime in a radius of 1,000 kilometers. The other Vorthak ships responded immediately. They fired their molecular dissolution beams at the Reaper, weapons that could unmake matter at the atomic level. The beams struck the human ship's hull and nothing happened. The Reaper's programmable matter armor had decided to exist in a quantum state that made molecular weapons irrelevant. The enemy beams passed through the ship like it was made of shadows, then reformed into solid matter once the attack was over. "Impossible," came a transmission from the Vorthak fleet. It was the first time anyone had heard them speak. The voice was like metal grinding against stone. "No species builds weapons that edit reality. The Harbingers were destroyed for attempting such madness." Lisa activated the communication system. "This is Captain Parker of the human vessel Reaper. You have attacked peaceful worlds and killed billions of innocent people. Surrender now, or we will show you what human madness can accomplish." The response was immediate. Every Vorthak ship in the fleet fired at once, filling space with deadly energy. But the Reaper was no longer where they expected it to be. The ship had phase shifted, moving partially into another dimension to avoid the attack. For a few seconds, Lisa could see both realities at once. In one, space was filled with deadly beams. In the other, vast creatures made of living mathematics swam through seas of liquid time. "We're inside their formation," Alex reported with excitement. "They can't target us without hitting each other. Fire at will." The next few minutes were unlike any battle in the history of warfare. The Reaper moved through the enemy fleet like a ghost, appearing inside ships to fire its reality-tearing weapons from within. Each shot created new holes in space-time, and each hole made the local area more unstable. 3 Vorthak dreadnoughts simply vanished as their biomechanical systems couldn't cope with having parts of their structure exist in different dimensions. 2 more collided with each other when their navigation systems were confused by the warped space around them. But the most disturbing moment came when the Reaper fired its main weapon at a Vorthak cruiser and missed. The void beam passed through empty space and struck one of Jupiter's smaller moons. The moon didn't explode or break apart. Instead, a perfect sphere of nothingness appeared where part of it used to be, as if someone had taken a bite out of reality itself. "Captain," Ryan said, his voice shaking, "we need to be more careful. If we keep tearing holes in space-time, we might damage something we can't fix." The surviving Vorthak ships were retreating, broadcasting messages in their grinding language. The biomechanical vessels were trying to adapt to the Reaper's weapons, growing new types of armor and defensive systems. But how do you defend against attacks that unmake the very concept of existence? "They're falling back to the outer system," Alex reported. "Wait, Captain, they're not retreating. They're regrouping, and they're calling for reinforcements." On the long-range sensors, new contacts were appearing at the edge of the solar system. More Vorthak ships, but these were different, larger, older, and they were broadcasting energy signatures that made the ship's computers issue warning alerts. "What are we looking at?" Lisa asked. Ryan studied the readings, his face growing pale. "Those aren't just warships, Captain. Those are Vorthak world killers. Ships designed to crack planets and turn star systems into graveyards." "How many?" 50. Maybe more. "And Captain, they're not afraid of us anymore. They're angry." Lisa looked at the displays showing the holes in space-time that their weapons had created. She thought about the moon they had accidentally damaged, and the warnings from the Coalition about ancient weapons that had destroyed galaxies. The Reaper had won its first battle, but at what cost? And now they faced an enemy that was no longer running in fear, but advancing with the fury of a species that had decided humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to exist. The real war was just beginning.